Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the power of forgiveness, and our guest is Dr. CPoe. Dr. Poe has been with us on a number of occasions, and I don't think that he is a stranger to members of our audience this morning. And Dr. Poe, let me thank you for being with us this morning, and to remind our audience that not only have you been with us on many occasions, but quite recently we've not been in touch with you, and we've been unable to have access to all of the knowledge and the information that you have and the information that you've already given us. But let's start off, Dr. Poe, by reminding our audience of Dr. CPoe. Give us some information in reference to your background, your education, and some of the things that were important in terms of eventually bringing you to us this morning. And then we will get into, by the second segment, we will get into the power of forgiveness. And we all anticipate the information that you're going to give us. Let's start off from that direction.
Well, let me just say, Dr. Haney, I feel very blessed to have the opportunity to be here and to be on your show again and to share. I came to Nashville in 1956 to attend Tennessee State University. I graduated in 1960 and enrolled at Meharry Medical College and graduated from Meharry in 1964. Did my internship in Chicago. Was drafted into the Army, served for a brief period in Korea. Then I developed sarcoidosis, and I ended up doing a residency in Berkeley, California. I completed that residency in 1970, made a trip to India looking for enlightenment, and I came back to Nashville in 1976 and was called to the ministry about that time, and served at Meharry Medical College in the faculty of the Department of Psychiatry for a while. And for the last, about 10 years, I've been in private practice in Dixon, Tennessee, and now in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a minister. I've pastored two churches at different times, and currently I'm an assistant minister at a church in Laverne, Tennessee, and currently I have a private practice part-time, and I also do some work at the Springfield Jail.
Mm-hmm. You know, Dr. Poe, the topic this morning, the power of forgiveness, is a very unique topic, and I'm sure that there's a lot of information associated with it, because you've given us so many other mental kind of topics prior to this time. So let's start off by giving you free rein in a real sense to develop this whole idea of the power of forgiveness. Why is it important that individuals or people or groups or whatever should become involved in? Because we've got a need for forgiveness, certainly in the world in which we live in today, both nationally and internationally. Let's talk about it from that perspective.
Yes. Forgiveness is a tremendous human need. Just as love is a tremendous challenge and a tremendous human need. A lot of problems, Dr. Haney, are related to the fact that people often want to be forgiven, but at the same time, when hurt and offended, when someone close to them is hurt and offended, they refuse to forgive. So unforgiveness is a major contributing factor to stress, to illness. As a matter of fact, the research shows that when people hold grudges or when they think about having been hurt in the past, their blood pressure goes up, their heart rate goes up, their muscle tension increases. We also know from scientific research that unforgiveness impairs the immune system. It helps to reduce your resistance to infection. Whereas forgiveness, people who are forgiving, one, they have better blood pressure, they have better functioning heart, they also have less stress, less anxiety, less depression. So while unforgiveness contributes to problems and unnecessary stress, forgiveness helps to reduce stress and helps to improve health. So forgiveness is a major challenge and a major need that I think most human beings have.
In other words, nobody can go beyond this whole idea of forgiveness or unforgiveness, that it's something that impacts us all.
It impacts us all, and because it's so connected with love. God came or sent his son to suffer and die that we might all receive the forgiveness of our sins. And so it's impossible to really love without being willing to forgive. So they are so intimately related, and therefore forgiveness is a tremendous need. Let me just also mention that one of the problems.
Let us take this first commercial break, and then we'll come in at that precise moment when we come back. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Yeah, that's... Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. CPoe, and he's given us some information in reference to the topic, the power of forgiveness. And Dr. Poe, as we promised, we simply want to pick up where we left off the last time and give you an opportunity to continue the discussion in reference to forgiveness. And I think that this is some excellent information that you're giving, and I think it's much needed information that we all need to hear. Let's pick up from that perspective.
Let's look at biblical examples of persons who forgave. You recall in the Old Testament the story of Joseph, how his brothers sold him into slavery, and how Potiphar's wife tried to, she accused him of trying to rape her, and Potiphar, the husband, believed his wife and had Joseph placed into prison. But to show you how what high regard God has for forgiveness, or for people who are willing to forgive, Joseph forgave his brothers, and God, even before that though, God elevated him to second to the Pharaoh and all of Egypt, and used him to save the Egyptians as well as his own family. Also, you remember the story of Hosea. God told him to marry a woman who was a prostitute. And even after he married her, she was still unfaithful. She gave birth to 2 or 3 children, not by him, but by men outside of the marriage. Of course, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. There's no better example than one who forgave than the Lord, who, while being crucified, said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." There's evidence also from the writings of Paul that he was a very forgiving spirit. Mahatma Gandhi, a very forgiving spirit. Dr. Martin Luther King, a very forgiving spirit. So God has a high regard for people who are willing to forgive. Now let me also say that in order to be forgiving of others, you've got to be willing to make an effort to forgive yourself. And this is a problem that a lot of people have. Some people will make an effort to forgive others with at the same time, if you ask them if they're willing to forgive themselves, they will say, "Oh no, I can't forgive myself for this or for that." Unfortunately, there are many examples of that. People who refuse to forgive themselves because they made bad decisions in the past. People who are no longer abusing alcohol and drugs, but still are angry with themselves because of the hurt that they caused themselves. Unforgiveness. And because of the hurt that they caused others. Sometimes a person who's had an abortion in the past, a woman who has an abortion, will refuse to forgive herself. So there are many other examples. A person who has committed adultery may be still angry at themselves, even though they've confessed their sin of wrongdoing, and God has forgiven them, but they refuse to forgive themselves. So unforgiveness, not forgiving oneself, is a major problem that contributes to unresolved grief, unresolved shame, unresolved anxiety. And as a result, that grief and that shame comes out in other indirect ways: overeating, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, okay? So there are many ways that unforgiveness will come out. And so forgiving oneself is a major need. And so what we're really saying is, the effort to forgive oneself is an effort to accept oneself. We're all human. We all make mistakes. God created us with the understanding that we would make mistakes. And so the problem is that too many people are still angry at themselves because of past mistakes and because of current mistakes. Well, the reality is, to be human is to be imperfect.
Good.
Is to be imperfect. And so we're going to continue to make mistakes. And so I've got to be willing to forgive myself. I need the mindset of forgiving myself because that means I accept my imperfections, and therefore I'm more able to forgive others. I'm more able to accept their imperfections. Okay? And so it's very important that we learn to forgive ourselves in order that we might in order to help us forgive others.
And that's a powerful testimony, Dr. Poe, in reference to that we have an individual responsibility that we can really direct our own destiny according to our own mind and according to our ability to forgive. Is that what we're saying?
Absolutely. It's difficult to experience the joy of the Lord. It's difficult to experience His peace. It's difficult to feel Him moving in your spirit if you are in a rage towards yourself, if you are angry towards yourself. The research shows that unforgiveness contributes to not forgiving oneself is to be angry at oneself. And to be angry at oneself is to be hostile towards oneself. And we know that hostility has been identified as one of the major factors in the type A personality. And we know that people who have the type A personality are much more prone to heart disease and are probably much more prone to disease in general. So it's very important that people practice forgiving themselves and practice forgiving others. It has significant health benefits. And by the way, also let me just share that there's evidence that people who are forgiving have better interpersonal relationships, better marriages. There's also evidence that people who are forgiving report being happier, So there's so many benefits, Dr. Haney, from making an effort to be forgiving. As a matter of fact, there's evidence that being forgiving improves the quality of one's sleep. So you see, there's a lot of benefits.
It's almost, and it's something that's entirely free. It's a decision that an individual can make, and it really doesn't cost in terms of financially anything and et cetera, but it's a mindset that if you have, then you can overcome almost any problem in the world that you have. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, because it opens you up to God, it opens you up to His Spirit. And let me give an example of forgiving oneself. Example, I've been practicing this for a while now. I forgive myself for not being a better father. I forgive myself for not being a better husband. I forgive myself for not knowing more as a psychiatrist. I forgive myself for not being better informed about the Bible. I forgive myself for not being able to pay my bills on time. I forgive myself for at times feeling afraid when I don't want to feel afraid, feeling angry when I don't want to feel angry. I forgive myself for being imperfect. I forgive myself for not having more money. I forgive myself, Dr. Haney. All right?
And so that brings about a peace of mind that it, in a real sense passes all understanding.
Praise God.
Just by the simple idea of forgiveness and that you can forgive yourself. A lot of folks you're saying that really cannot forgive themselves.
That's right.
I would imagine that's one of the real problems that we have in reference to many of the traumas that people become involved in, and some of the disagreements and et cetera. And so, Dr. Poe, we're going to take this second commercial break, and then we're going to get back and we're going to allow you to continue instructing us in reference to the power of forgiveness. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. CPoe, and the topic is the power of forgiveness. Dr. Poe, I think that within the framework of the information that you've given us, if we were to take these ideas of the power of forgiveness and focus on some of the things that are happening in the world today in terms of people, in terms of situations, and let's look at what is happening on the United States border now with all of the children coming from various parts of South America and Central America, and et cetera. What kind of forgiveness could you bring in terms of how could you settle that with this idea of forgiveness?
Right. Well, you know, the scripture says, judge ye not that you not be judged. And I think that there are a lot of people who, because of their past mistakes, are angry at themselves and therefore judging themselves. And when we do that, we tend to judge other people. I believe that God, and according to His Word, wants us to be compassionate, wants us to reach out to those who are less fortunate. And it bothers me when I hear people are so judgmental of other people who are in desperate need. I mean, these children who are coming to our country looking for freedom, looking for a better life, I think ought to be responded to with compassion, and I think we ought to be merciful. I mean, we're a big enough country, we have enough resources to be able to offer solace and to offer assistance to these people. Just think about what a difference it would make if there was a practice of forgiveness. And by the way, I understand that in Ireland now there's a researcher by the name of Dr. Robert Enright, who's a psychologist on the staff at the University of Wisconsin. He's doing some work in one or two elementary schools in Ireland. You know, there's been this conflict between the Catholics and the Protestants there for years, and teaching the children the concept of forgiveness. And it's having a positive effect. And so we need to teach forgiveness in the public schools in our nation today. Because with my grandson, we have Xbox in our house, and almost everything that you can buy is violence. And so he's constantly watching violence on the weekend. And right now after camp, you follow me? And so, you know, it's like the gun situation. All right. I mean, you know, how much more do we have to suffer because before we put some constraints on owning guns? What would be the situation between the Palestinians and the Israelis if both sides were willing to be forgiving? What would be the situation in the Ukraine between Russia and the Ukraine government and the insurrectionists if there was a practice of forgiveness on both sides? What would be the situation in Syria? What would be the situation in Afghanistan? I mean, look how much we have suffered because of our refusal to practice forgiveness. And I think it starts with being able to forgive oneself, being able to accept one's own shortcomings, one's own mistakes, and rather than denying that I've done some wrong, I have been down, okay, and now I see other people are down, and therefore I should have compassion for others as others have had compassion for me. And so, Dr. Haney, if there was a more endorsement, more teaching of forgiveness in our schools, if the government gave some encouragement to teaching forgiveness, it could make a world of difference.
And so, Dr. Poe, in a real sense, it's the same kind of mental kind of thing that we've talked about all along. You always bring us the kind of information that we think that we need, and it's an information that is in reality worked within the Bible. I mean, it's a spiritual kind of thing. I think you indicated that you've made a trip to India, and you've seen a lot of things in reference to that. Developing your own spirituality, and you believe that if more people were to think in terms of forgiveness and be open and allow God to operate in their lives, that we would have a better world. Is that, I mean, that's no pie in the sky kind of thing. That's a reality that you believe in.
Yes. We need more emphasis, not so much on justice. I was watching a DVD on the power of forgiveness. And you remember the Amish, this person who went into school and killed 5 girls and injured 5 girls, and the Amish, because in their culture they don't have a concept of revenge, they forgave the perpetrator. And also, you remember Dr. Martin Luther King having been killed by James Earl Ray, and do you remember his son went and visited James Earl Ray when he was in prison? I think it was in California. There's another researcher by the name of and I can't think of his name now, but he's an outstanding researcher on the staff at Virginia Commonwealth University, and he's done a lot of research in the area of forgiveness. And his mother was killed by a young man, and he sought the young man out and forgave him. In any event, forgiveness, if practiced, if taught to our children in schools, if practiced in relationships, okay, where there's so much domestic violence going on. Suicide rate is so very, very high in our country. The homicide rate is still too high. If people were willing to practice forgiveness, Dr. Haney, this would be a different world.
And even on the local scene, Dr. Poe, we talk about the international scene and what's happening nationally and et cetera, but even among, excuse me, among people that we know individually here, among our local folks, that we could also practice forgiveness among ourselves. Is that what we're saying?
Very much. Look at the racial divide. You know, we hear about the racial divide, the political divide, the gridlock in Washington, the conflict between Republicans and Democrats, okay? All of that could be reduced significantly if both sides, wherever there's a conflict, were willing to embrace or practice forgiveness. And again, it starts at home. It starts with me being willing to forgive or to accept myself as a human being who's imperfect, as a human being who's made bad decisions, as a human being who will continue to make some bad decisions, no matter how committed I am to the Lord. I'm gonna make some bad decisions, present and future. So with that understanding, that enables me to feel compassionate towards people who are making bad decisions. It enables me to be compassionate towards people who are hurting and who need my help and who need the help of other people.
And finally, Dr. Poe, we're all a work in progress. Is that what we're saying?
Absolutely.
The last minute and a half in reference to that. We are a work in progress. That is, we are not complete. But go on, make some statements.
Yes, we'll never have it all together, Dr. Haney. When they lay me to rest, there will still be some unresolved issues, some things I didn't achieve, some conflicts and issues that I didn't resolve. And that's the reality of being a human being. And I like the human being that God has created me to be. Shortcomings, faults, weaknesses, okay? At the same time, we've made some good decisions. But the way I see my good decisions is to say, I got help from God, I got help from a lot of people. My faults, I forgive myself for my faults and the bad decisions. But I'm proud of the good decisions that I've made.
And Dr. Poe, let me tell you how delighted we are to have you back with us and to understand that the information that you're giving us is information that can be used by all, which is to say that as long as folks understand that it is really up to them as to whether or not they will forgive. And then by being able to forgive, then they can bring a lot of other things into their lives. Amen. And I want to thank you for bringing that information. And I want to encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning. Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is But God Ministry. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the topic But God's Ministry, Pastor Kay Walker, and along with Pastor Kay Walker is Miss Antoinette Duke, and with Miss Antoinette Duke and Pastor Walker is Miss Russell. And of course, let me welcome you, Ms. Russell, Ms. Duke, and Pastor Walker to the show this morning and tell the three of you how delighted we are to have you here dealing with the topic that you wish to talk about this morning. Let's start off, Pastor Walker, by having you to give us some information in reference to your background, your education, and some of your experiences, and then we'll do the same with Ms. Duke and Ms. Russell. You will be able to sort of give us the same kind of information in reference to your background, and we'll be able to sort of make our audience familiar with the three of you this morning, and then we'll get back during that second segment dealing with But God Ministry, the ministry that the three of you wish to talk about this morning. Let's start off with you, Pastor Walker.
All right, Dr. Haney, thank you, first of all, for allowing us the opportunity to come on here. I've been on here many a times, of course, and I'm Pastor Kelvin L. Walker, pastor of the Hands of God Christian Church, located in East Nashville, 600 North 2nd Street. Educated right here in the state of Tennessee, the public school systems up until all the time I wanted to be educated. I put it like that. Ended up getting kicked out of the public school system. My story is, I went to the Navy, got a GED when I got out. Spent a little time at Tennessee State University, studied some things. Trevecca East Campus Prison Program when I was incarcerated. I went through there as well. Did a little bit of Edmondson Junior College also. But not degreed in anything, but have a measure of knowledge on many things. And it brings me to the stage right here to be able to share the stage with these young ladies in the ministry that they're involved in. Would like to say also that my wife, who's not here, is a member of the board of But God Ministry, and I'm so excited about it because it's fulfilling to her, and it's exciting to me. I support her 100% in this endeavor because it allows her to see her purpose, and that's why I'm here today with these young ladies.
Very good. Ms. Duke, what about you, your background, some information in reference to your situation?
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here as well. I'm originally from Huntsville, Alabama, 8 girls and 5 boys, and currently hold a master's degree in organizational leadership and a master's in business administration. That has led me into a field of service, human resources, and that's particularly what I find most impactful as far as what I'd like to accomplish in life is just serving. It's a choice, and that's what I choose to do.
And Ms. Russell, what about you? Background, education, and some of your experiences.
Yes, sir. I am a Nashvilleian. I'm an East High graduate. I have a master's from Tennessee State University, strategic leadership and planning. I am employed at Metro General Hospital, where I'm a senior financial counselor there, and I cater mainly to the indigent in the community, and that is a very humbling and honorable experience as well. So I'm glad to be here today also. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Pastor Walker, you know that this is a topic that I think that is worthy of our consideration today. Why don't you make some statements in reference to it, and then during the second segment, I understand that Ms. Duke is the creator in a real sense of this organization, and then we'll come back during that second segment and allow her to start us off talking about how she created the organization, and then Ms. Russell will be able to join us during that second segment. Let's start off.
Dr. Haney, as I said earlier, that I support this ministry 100%. Again, my wife is in it. She's fulfilled in being in it. I see the joy that she has as a result of being a part of this because it gives her an opportunity to express service, and they do a lot of things that I'm excited about, I'm glad about, and happy to see. Because, when you think about first ladies in the churches, they sometimes are in an awkward position. Sometimes they're the most loved and respected, and then at other times they're the most despised and rejected. It's a situation where sometimes they're cursed if they do and they curse if they don't. Somebody's complaining that the first lady's doing too much, and then somebody's complaining that she's not doing enough. So, to see them develop a ministry that caters to first ladies and give first ladies an outlet to express what is really inside of their heart to do in terms of ministry, and not having to be running around in the church trying to figure out how to do this and how to do that, but to actually get involved in ministry themselves and make a difference. And I believe it's a beautiful thing just to sit back and to behold all of that, Dr. Haney.
Very good. Of course, we're getting ready for our first commercial break, Ms. Duke. And when we come back, we understand that you are the creator of this organization, and we'll allow you during this second segment to give us some information in reference to how this organization came into being and perhaps your motive and your inspiration in a real sense in bringing this organization to us this morning. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. The topic is But God's Ministry, and we're fortunate to have with us Pastor Kay Walker, Ms. Duke, who is the creator of this program, and Ms. Russell. Let's start off this second segment, Ms. Duke, by having you to give us some information in reference to your inspiration in reference to creating such an organization called But God Ministry.
Well, I'm really excited about it, and I just have to say that it's not about me, but God. Mm-hmm. The ministry was created because of three similar concepts that I think we all kind of encounter: pain, problems, and people. Mm-hmm. And the end result was, but God. Mm-hmm. And so through a guiding scripture, Psalms 41:10, it just talks about, but you, O Lord. Mm-hmm. And I just remember reading that scripture and knowing that early on, there was a lot of focus on the pain, the problem. Mm-hmm. And then I saw in that one scripture where it says, but you, O Lord. Mm-hmm. And from that was the inspiration that as long as we keep our focus on other things and not God, it will seem like it's pain, problems, and people. But the result should always end with, but God.
But God. And of course, I would imagine, Ms. Russell, you would buy into that. What are some of your statements in reference to this whole idea of the ministry that you're involved in, Ms. Russell?
Well, I have to say, Antoinette, of course, we're good friends. Mm-hmm. And she came to me, and told me what, God had laid on her heart to do. And in, telling me what she wanted to do, I wanted to be a part of it because in this particular ministry, it really helps define my purpose in life. And that is serving. I have a will to serve. And like Pastor Walker had mentioned earlier, whatever, a lot of times being the first lady in a ministry, in a church, you're kind of condemned if you do and condemned if you don't. But in this particular ministry, our motto is, of course, to serve. And like I said, it has really been fulfilling for me to do that, going out into the community and serving on various ministries, children, the elderly. And but God.
And of course, this is the ministry that you wanted to bring to us this morning, primarily because you believe that it has some impact not only on your church, but it also has impact upon the members of the church itself. Is that what we're saying?
Exactly.
That's
In the
right.
community.
That's right.
Absolutely. You know, Dr. Haney, it's important to realize that when you're dealing with first ladies in the church, a lot of times, you know, and there's this thought process that's out there in the body of Christ that, well, if the husband is called in the ministry, then the wife is automatically called to be a pastor. So they come up with this created title called co-pastor. I don't know where they got it from, but it's there.
The scripture
Yeah.
is that way?
It's out there and it's existing. And I think a lot of times some of the women are pushed into that spot because of the non-existence of a but God ministry that now exists. So now here you got a ministry that first ladies can tap into. And it's open and available to all first ladies that, you know, that have a sincere desire to serve. First of all, you got to have a servant's heart, you know. It's just not something, it's not a social club, it's
Right.
not a gathering place,
Right.
it's not something that you do when you don't have anything else to do.
Right.
It's something that you do because you have a desire to serve God's people, you got a desire to please God, and there's a measure of integrity that goes into this process as well. So this is what I'm seeing with But God Ministry. That's why, you know, I lend my 100% support. I even got, you know, my little T-shirt on the other day because I understand the importance of it and what's happening with it.
Now, is this open to first ladies of any church who wishes to become involved in?
Absolutely.
And what are some of your recruitment techniques and your recruitment methods, and how successful have you been so far?
And actually, this ministry is designed to provide and equip resources to help develop, build, and grow. We call it a ministry that's twofold. We use senior pastors' wives and widows to help coordinate events within the community. But we ask for and we welcome committed volunteers, which does not require you to be a senior pastor's wife or a widow. If you believe in service and serving, we want you to be a part of this team. And so what we've done, we actually have a conference that's coming up October of this year, and it's just open to any denomination that believes in the Lord Jesus Christ and want to serve. So whether you're a senior pastor's wife or whether you're just committed and want to be a part of the ministry, the opportunity is there. We just use senior pastors' wives to coordinate those activities in order for us to be available to go out in the community to serve.
Now, Ms. Russell, now what are some of the activities that you're involved in terms of trying to bring more of the first ladies of the church into various churches into this ministry?
Well, actually, some of the programs that we've had already, we fellowship with the Disciple Village with the senior citizens. We went in and had a dinner, you know, just for them. We've worked with a ministry that caters to the single parents. We've done some, we had a diaper drive and, you know, had some toys and stuff for some of the children and ministries like that. So it has just been a great experience for me. And then another thing too, you know, like it's just brought a camaraderie together from very, very great ladies that through this, without this, I would not have had the opportunity, you know, to meet some of these ladies. So again, and like she said, we're having our conference that we're really kicking for in October, so.
And so in reality, you can spread this all throughout the city of Nashville and farther, and et cetera, and et cetera.
Yes.
And so you're not limited in terms of denomination or
Absolutely.
whatever.
Yes, sir.
That all a person has to do is have a desire to serve.
That's right.
And perhaps in this upper echelon, they would perhaps have to be the spouse of
That's right.
the pastor of the church, but
That's right.
others are also allowed to become involved in it.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Well, what are some of the recruitment activities that are going on within the church, your church itself? Why don't you think about it from that perspective? Why don't you give us some information in reference to what's going on in your church to bring more people into this organization?
Well, and that is probably one of the key things. My husband is Pastor James Glenn Duke, and he is the pastor of Psychiatrist4 Primitive Baptist Church. But what we are just trying to make it known is it's more so what goes outside the walls of the church. So what we're saying is, it doesn't matter what you want to do in the community, we will tap into that by using senior pastors' wives. One of the things that we have now is a back to school drive. And so we use a lot of social media techniques to say, hey, this is what we're doing in the community. We're not sitting, we're serving. And if you'd like to join us, back to school, elderly, anything that would allow us to make our presence known in the community, we do that.
Very good. And of course, let us take this second commercial break, and then we'll be back. Ms. Russell will pick up with you to elaborate upon some of the things that are going on in your church. Okay. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you, and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor Walker, Ms. Duke, and Ms. Russell in reference to the program, But God Ministry. And let me, Ms. Russell, pick up with you during this last segment, and to have you to give us some information in reference to some of the things that you'd like to talk about dealing with this ministry and some of the efforts that are being made in your particular church to spread the word in reference to the But God Ministry. And Ms. Duke will also continue her discussion in reference to creating this organization. And Pastor Walker will help us close this out for today.
Okay. In regards to some of the things that we're doing, first of all, I'm a member of Bethlehem United Primitive Baptist Church, where my husband, Dr. Ronnie J. Russell, is the pastor. And what we do, you know, it's not necessarily in the church. We use the first